Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Janna Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Janna Vallabha Girivardhari Jasura Nandana Brajadana Ranjana Jasura Nandana Brajajana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jayo Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Janna Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Janna Vallabha Girivardhari Jasura Nandana Brajajana Ranjana Jasura Nandana Brajajana Ranjana Jasura Nandana Brajajana Ranjana Jasura Nandana Brajajana Ranjana Jamuna Tiro Vanachari Jamuna Tiro Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Sisi Radha Madhava ki jai, Sisi Radha Giridhari ki jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajaka Jaja Shodhara Shri Srimad Divine Grace of Bhaicharanara in the Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajaka Jaja Shodhara Shri Srimad Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada ki jai. Nantakoti Vaishnava Vrindi ki jai. Grantara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Samveda Bhakti ki jai. Go Premanandi. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories, Sisi Guru and Sri Gauranga. Krishna Vastaya Buddhale Shrimati Bhakti Gauravani Bhajadane Yavashesha Sunyavadi Bhajgatyadi Shadarane. Hare Krishna. So this morning, reading from the 7th canto, 7th chapter, what Prahlad learned in the womb. We'll start with text 50, and also we'll Read 51 and 52. And 53, Dvijamani is giving class on. He said it's a Sankirtan verse. So watch out tomorrow. It's going to be a fired up Sankirtan Bhagavatam class. So here we go. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Devo Suro Manusho Va Yaksho Gandharva Eva Va Bhajan Mukunda Charan Mukunda Charanam. Where is Mukunda Charanam? He's in the kitchen. Okay. Swashtiman Syad Yata Vayam Devasuro Manusho Va Yaksho Gandharva Eva Va Bhajan Mukunda Charanam Swashtiman Syad Yata Vayam Deva Suro Manusho Va Yaksho Gandharva Eva Va Bhajan Mukunda Charanam Swashtiman Syadyata Vayam Deva Suro Manusho Va Yaksho Gandharva Eva Va Bhajan Mukunda Charanam Swashtiman Syadyata Vayam
Devo Suro Manusho Yava Yaksho Gandharva Eva Va Bhajan Mukunda Charanam Swastiman Syadyata Vayam Devo Suro Manusho Va Yaksho Gandharva Eva Va Bhajan Mukunda Charanam Swastiman Syad Yatha Vayam Devo Suro Manusho Va Yaksho Gandharva Eva Va
Anyone else?
Devo Suro Manusho Va
Yaksho Gandharva Eva Va
Yaksho Gandharva Eva Va
Bhajan Mukunda Charanam Swastimam Syad Yata Vayam
Swastimam Syad Yata Vayam.
Online?
I use a lot of line man, right?
He's made a rare appearance. You want to chant? You're here. Devasura Manushava Yaksho Gandharva Eva Bhajan Mukundo Charanam Swashtiman Syadyata Vayam. Synonyms. Deva, a demigod. Asuraha, a demon. Manushaha, a human being. Va, or Yakshaha, a yaksha, a member of a demoniac species. Okay. Gandharvaha, a Gandharva. Eva, indeed. Va, or Bhajan, rendering service. Mukunda Charanam, to the lotus feet of Mukunda, Lord Krishna, who can give liberation. Swastiman, full of all auspiciousness. Syat becomes yata, just as vayam, we, Prahlad Maharaj. Translation: if a demigod, demon, human being, yaksha, Gandharva, or anyone within this universe renders service to the lotus feet of Mukunda, who can deliver liberation, he is actually situated in the most auspicious condition of life, exactly like us, the Mahajanas, headed by Prahlad Maharaj. Purport: Prahlad Maharaj, by his living example, requested his friends to engage in devotional service. Whether in demigod society, asura society, human society, or Gandharva society, every living entity should take shelter of the lotus feet of Mukunda and thus become perfect in good fortune. So text 51 and 52. Nalam dvijatvam devatvam rishitvam vasuratmajaha prinanaya mukundasya no britam na bahugata na danam na tapo nidya na socham na vratani cha priyate malaya bhaktya harir anyad vidambanam. Translation: my dear friends, sons of the demons, you cannot please the Supreme Personality of Godhead by becoming perfect brāhmaṇas, demigods, or great saints, or by becoming perfectly good in etiquette or vast learning. None of these qualifications can awaken the pleasure of the Lord, nor by charity, austerity, sacrifice, cleanliness, or vows can one satisfy the Lord. The Lord is pleased only if one has unflinching, unalloyed devotion to Him. Without sincere devotional service, everything is simply a show. Purport: Prahlad Maharaj concludes that one can become perfect by serving the Supreme Personality, the Supreme Lord, sincerely by all means. Material elevation to life as a brāhmana, demigod, rishi, and so on are not causes for developing love of Godhead, but if one sincerely engages in the service of the Lord, his Krishna consciousness is complete. This is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita, 9th chapter, 30th verse, Apichet suraracharo bhajate mam ananya bhak sadureva samantavya samyag vyavastito hi saha. Even if one commits the most abominable actions, if he is engaged in devotional service, he is to be considered saintly because he is properly situated. To develop unalloyed love for Krishna is the perfection of life. Other processes may be helpful, but if one does not develop his love for Krishna, these other processes are simply a waste of time. Dharma sunushtita pumsa bishvakshena katasuya notparayadhyariratim shrama eva hi kevalam. Duties, dharma, executed by men regardless of occupation are only so much useless labor if they do not provoke attraction for the message of the Supreme Lord. Bhagavatam 1:2-8. The test of perfection is one's unalloyed devotion to the Lord. Excuse me. Hare Krishna. Omagyantimirandasya gyananjana salakaya chakshulunminitam nena taismai Sri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Nina Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhaktivedanta Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Banchikapadrubhascha Kripa Sindhu Bevacha Patitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. So by your good wishes and prayers, I will try to say a few words. Can we open the door a little bit? That's the first thing I'm going to say. Let some air in here. So this verse 50. One important point is that the Vedic culture recognizes a universal community and population. Yesterday was a cosmic event, wasn't it? And people got all excited. Even some people thinking it, It was crazy?
A lot of people get paid tickets to go see it.
Okay. We're talking about the same thing? Okay, the eclipse. Okay. Seeing it as, they thought, some people described it as a spiritual event. And some people save that day to get married on, or engaged or something like that. Of course, we know in the Vedic astrological and astronomical calculation, it's an inauspicious day. So, but still, it caught a lot of people's attention all over wherever the path was, specifically. And, but even though they're attracted by it and amazed by it, spellbound, still, they're still thinking that their understanding of the whole cosmic situation is very, very limited. That is just us, human beings, and what we can see in this world here. But in the very introduction at the beginning of this verse is saying, if a demigod, a demon, human being, yaksha, gandharva, anyone within this universe renders service to the lotus feet of Mukunda. So it's taking an understanding that there's a big, big world out there and all kinds of living entities, not just human beings. There's something known as anthropocentric view of reality. You know what that is? You're a learned person.
Anthro has something to study with culture.
Anthropocentric.
Human-centric.
Yeah, human beings are the center of everything, of reality. That's us. So we have that disease, anthropocentric. When you're preaching, you can say that's the problem is we have an anthropocentric view of reality, of this material world. In fact, isn't there a saying, man is the measure of all things? Is that the humanistic movement or something like that? Humanism? I guess so. Man is a measure of all things. In other words, there's evolution, and gradually, now we're the pinnacle. We're on the top of the pile. We're it. And it just gets better and better. Do you really think that's a fact? It's getting better and better? If you look at the number of mountains of what do you call that? Well, mountains of garbage, but mountains of tranquilizers and antidepressants and intoxication people have to take these days, you really wonder if we're actually on the top of evolution. People are really in a sorry state. But anthropocentric, but the Vedic view of reality in this world is not anthropocentric. Human beings are actually in a minority in this universe. We're in a minority, and we're actually shunned, especially in Kali Yuga. Actually, sometimes the example is given just like in previous times, leper colonies, they used to build a big wall and just keep them in there because they didn't want anyone to get contaminated. So in Kali Yuga, human beings, this planet is off limits. Just like if you go, Coronado I saw, but I know in Imperial Beach right now, you go to the beach, what do the signs on the beach say? Contaminated. Yeah, stay out of the water. It's contaminated. Stay away. So there are probably some signs out there outside this planet. Don't go here. Don't go to the earth in Kali Yuga. It's horrible. Stay away. It's contaminated. Very, very contaminated. So that's who we are. And it's describing what you got the devatas and yakshas, which are very, very powerful, the gandharvas, the demons. Actually, demons are actually on a higher level than human beings because of their material potencies and powers. So that's one thing is we have and then of course we know what the center is. Krishna-centric view of reality. Krishna is the center of everything, the absolute truth. That's really the center of everything. We're not the center of anything. We're just kind of part of the picture, but we're not the center. And to put ourselves in the center with our inability to understand the laws of nature, we simply create problems. Right? Just like putting someone in charge of something who they have no qualification. Like that. Right? They have absolutely no idea what they're doing. Maybe you've seen that in your life, right? You're laughing. Maybe you've seen this? Have you seen this? Someone no qualification whatsoever, and they're put in charge, and what happens? In this country, it happens every 4 years, right? No political jokes, sorry. But it's true, right? They don't know what's going on. They're not qualified to lead. They're not kshatriyas. They're not trained. So anyone in a position of authority, if they're not trained properly, they make a mess of everything. So we're just making a mess. We have no idea what the laws of nature are, or let alone who put them in motion. And that's the real person who's the center of everything. And that's Krishna. Krishna's the center of the material world. Krishna's the center of the spiritual world, of all reality. And once you have that view of life, was that one line from the Purusha Sukta? Evam, it says, Amrita bhavati. Yeah. Such a person who understands this, vidvan, iha amrita bhavati, can become immortal even in this lifetime. So the whole point is that there's a person behind everything, and that's Vishnu or Krishna. Such a person who knows that can become amrita, eternal or liberated even in this lifetime. So, but those who don't understand it, we're destined to stay in this material world and make all kinds of mistakes. So the verse Prahlad Maharaj is saying that it doesn't matter who you are, where you're coming from, if you engage in the Lord's devotional service, you are situated in the most auspicious condition of life. Swashtiman, Syat Yata Vayam. Just like the great devotees like Prahlad Maharaj. You're on the same boat. We're all on the same boat. So we'll get there. I don't know who it was, some very rich man in America. This is probably 20 years ago, maybe. Maybe 20 years ago. He had a famous quote. As they noticed, even though he was so wealthy, he always rode in coach on airplanes. Didn't have a private jet. And he didn't ride in first class. He always rode in coach. And they asked him about that. He says, well, as far as I know, he was from the Midwest. As far as I know, the back of the plane arrives just about the same time as the front of the plane. So what's the difference? Rise at the same time. So as long as you're on the plane, you get there. So as long as you're on the boat of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's movement, of Prabhupada's movement, you'll get there. So that's the point. That's why it's the most auspicious. So it doesn't matter who you are, where you came from. And of course, we could spend the whole class talking about examples of demigods, of demons, of human beings, yakshas, gandharvas, so many different personalities who took up devotional service and became perfect. So that's the point Prahlad Maharaj is saying here. And this is a unique characteristic of devotional service. Other kinds of yoga and self-realization, you become disqualified. But it doesn't matter who you are, what your background is, you can be completely, everything's changed. Sanatana Goswami gives the example of bell metal, which is like brass. By alchemy, it turns into gold. So even though we are of lower births and so on, we can become engaged in full auspiciousness. What is that? Bhajan Mukunda Charanam. By worshiping the feet of Mukunda Charanam. So he's in the kitchen. After class, everyone should go offer some flowers and chandan at his feet. Okay? Actually, he's Mukunda Charanadas. So he already knows this. So the next text, 51 and 52, is listing a whole bunch of qualifications here which are important, but if they're not connected with devotional service, it says here, vidambanam, means it's only a show. It's only a show. In the sense that from the eternal aspect of eternity and what's really important, it won't get us anywhere. So let me read the verse. It says here, my dear friends, O sons of the demons, you cannot please the Supreme Personality of Godhead by becoming perfect brāhmaṇas, demigods, or great saints, or by becoming perfectly good in etiquette or vast learning. None of these qualifications can awaken the pleasure of the Lord, nor by charity, austerity, sacrifice, cleanliness, or vows can one satisfy the Lord. The Lord is pleased only if one has unflinching, unalloyed devotion to Him. Without sincere devotional service, everything is simply a show. So to qualify it means if these things are not connected to Krishna consciousness, Krishna is not at all impressed or pleased. Not very pleased. Of course, Krishna is pleased if someone has some of these qualifications. It's not that if one doesn't have brahminical quality, you can say, well, Prabhu, don't get on my case. I'm a slob, I'm messy, but I read the verse in Bhagavatam today. Krishna's not pleased if if I have brahminical qualities or not. This is right there in the Bhagavatam this morning, So one could make that argument. One's not austere, doesn't have cleanliness, vows. Actually, all these things are very, very important. And the Prabhupada says right in the purport that they are helpful. They're helpful. In fact, very helpful. These are all very, very helpful for the cultivation of Krishna consciousness, but they're not Krishna consciousness in and of themselves. One can be a very, very good Brahmin and not be Krishna conscious. In fact, I just read a story yesterday about a Brahmin and a prostitute. You want to hear it? You know the story about the Brahmin and the prostitute? They live across the street from each other. What, you just talking about this yesterday? Or you'd like, I remember that. Okay. You know the story? You know the story. Should I tell the story? Does everyone know the story? Someone just tell it in class yesterday? Okay. I just read it. So anyways, there's this Brahmin, Paka Brahmin. He happens to live across the street from a prostitute. So he's sitting there, in his house, looking out the window. He's got his Bhagavad Gita there. And every day he sits there with his Bhagavad Gita, kind of like studying his Gita. But so he's looking out the window there, and he's noticing the prostitute and men coming all day long and this and that. And he's thinking, prostitute, right? And, life goes on. And all of a sudden death comes. And the Yamadutas come for him, and the Vishnudutas come for her. And the Brahman's saying, wait a second, what's going on here? I'm a Brahmin, and she's a prostitute. And then the Yamadutas said, wait a second. It was explained to him that you sat there every single day with the Bhagavad Gita in front of you, but you didn't read one verse. All you're thinking about is, there's a prostitute, there's a prostitute. And she was thinking, looking across the street at you, I wish I was such a nice Brahmin, had mode of goodness, and following the Gita. And he's so fortunate, he's there reading the Bhagavad Gita very carefully, and Krishna and Arjuna and all the wonderful instructions of the Gita. So she was actually absorbed in Bhagavad Gita consciousness, and while he had the Gita right in front of him, he's thinking about the prostitute all day long. So, just having a thread is not enough. That's one story. And all these different qualifications, they don't really in and of themselves. One can be very, very charitable. Just like in the Mahabharata, who is famous for his charity every day at noon? Every day at noon, whoever came to him, he would give them whatever they wanted, a Kshatriya. Karna, because he was the son of Surya. So every day at noon, it was known that anyone could come to him and he would give whatever they wanted. But was he very Krishna conscious? It causes a lot of problems. So just being very, very charitable. And we know also charity, you can give in charity for some very horrible things. Right? There's charity in the mode of ignorance and passion. So just being charitable or very austere. Immediately came to mind as just the other day when we gave class about Srivas Pandit. That one Brahmin who was so austere, all he lived on was milk. Just milk. And it was a nice Paka Brahmin and all that, living just on milk. And the Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, you think just by drinking milk you can attain my mercy? That's not good enough. There has to be some bhakti. I'm not attracted by this kind of austerity. So that they have to be in connection with Krishna consciousness, different sacrifices, being very, very clean, different vows and so on. So what really pleases Krishna is devotional service. And this very eye-opening verse in the Bhagavad Gita, this 9:30, api chet suraracharo. Suraracharo means abominable, very abominable person. Even if one performs abominable activities, Bhajate mama nanya bhak, if he's engaged in my devotional service, still he's considered a sadhu. Now that's a pretty powerful statement, because people do some pretty horrible things or go off the track, but Krishna says as long as they're actually a devotee in heart, I still consider them a sadhu. And then of course there's dharma sustina pumsa bishvakshena katasuya. Not pariyadyaradyatim shrama eva hi kevalam. This last line of this verse is like the last line of the verse we're reading today. This hariyar anyad vidambanam and shrama hi eva kevalam. Krishna is saying it's only a show or what's the word? Useless labor. Shrama eva hi kevalam means completely. Because if one's not attaining, advancing in Krishna consciousness, what's the use of all these things? Of course, I'd be very careful, again, not to think, well, these things aren't important. They're all very, very important. They're signs of piety, and they actually help one. Just like charity. What's a good reason for giving in charity? Especially for householders. Brahmacharis are supposed to be penniless. Are you penniless? Are you penniless? Are you penniless? Right? Bitcoin. Okay. So, I mean, the householders is specifically meant for households, but of course anyone can be charitable. But you know why, as far as giving in charity is very important? Purification of what? Yeah. Both of, you're right. In other words, we're very, very attached to our money. Money's the honey. Prahlad Maharaj says that. So in his verse, money's the honey, right? Money's the honey. Oh, gotta have that money, right? That's everything. It's everything in our society. In fact, we don't have a classless society. You know what makes the different classes in today's society? Money. You're high class if you have a lot of money, and you're low class if you don't have any money. It's pretty amazing, isn't it? So, but we're all very attached to our money. The problem is that even a pauper is proud of his penny. I got a penny. You know, that's like, it doesn't matter what we have, we're very attached to it, right? Someone can be, it's not just wealthy people. Uh-oh. You're not proud of it. He's giving in charity. He's not proud of it. No, very good. Okay, there we go. Okay. So we have show and tell in class today. Okay. But it purifies the person, that he understands it should be used. It's Krishna's energy. It should be used for others' benefit, especially for the service of the Lord. And he gives. He gives. It's very, very important. And there's one speaker, he passed away, but a nice gentleman. Forget his name right now. He'll come back to me. But he said he taught his children that at a very young age that you give 10% of whatever you have in charity. Just give 10%. He says that's pretty easy if you get $1 a week for allowance or something like that. But what happens when you start making $1 million or $10 million? You go, I give $1 million? You know? But you have to be trained at 10% of whatever you make. Jim Rohn, that was his name, Jim Rohn. And he says, not so easy, because he was quite wealthy also, very successful businessman and motivational speaker and so on. But he said, you know, when you say, it's like, I got to write a check for $1 million because I made 10 million, or I have to check 10 million because I made 100 million, that's not so easy, because they're so attached. So that's why charity is very, very important. The Vedas say minimum 10%. Or was it 50%? Right? Rupa Goswami set that example when he retired. He had a whole boat full of gold coins and 50% and this and for other things and what have you. So it's very, very important because we're attached. So to be able to give in charity, I think that's very, very important. In fact, there are many people who know that the key to sustaining one's wealth is giving it away. Did you know that? Yeah, because there's a cycle in nature. If you hold on to everything, then things become stagnant. So you read any of these books by very well-to-do people, they'll say that giving in charity is actually the key to maintaining your wealth. In fact, what's his name? Well, I don't know what his first name was. Carnegie, some people say, or Carnegie. I don't know where you're from. But I know Dwaita, who's from New Zealand, would say Carnegie. So I don't know if that's the Scottish way of saying it. Andrew was his name, Andrew Carnegie or Carnegie. Very, very successful businessman in the last century and in this country, built up a huge fortune and so on. And when he passed away, they found a little note in his desk. You know what that note said? Chant Hare Krishna. No, I didn't. I'm just saying who's awake. Who's awake? Who's awake? Okay. It said, in the first half of my life, I will make a fortune. In the second half of my life, I'll give it all away. And he's the Carnegie Foundation, and he was very, very charitable. But he wrote that note when he was a young man. It was in the back of his desk. They found it. First half of my life, make all this money. Second half, give it all away. Like that. So many well-to-do people understand this principle. And also it's a source of peace of mind. You're just hanging on, holding on to things. Holding on. It's mine, it's mine, it's mine, it's mine. Until they just rip it, take it out of your hand. Death, you pry your fingers. It's mine, it's mine, it's mine. And that doesn't have to be just whatever it might be. We're attached to it. We're attached to it. That's my dhoti. That's my bead bag. That's my glubjaman. That's my water bottle. That's my sweatshirt. That's my tilak. Those are my beads. Those are my kopans. Who took my kopans, right? Kopans disappear on the line. Who took them? Those are my kopans. I just made them yesterday. So it doesn't matter what it is. We're very, very attached. Like that. Prabhupada gives an example. You know an example about the train in was it Hora Station? How do you say that? Howrah Station. Hora is actually a better word for it if you've ever been there. But when he was traveling as a young man, business and so on, he saw this one guy walking with a burnt piece of wood. Thinking it's something very valuable, and bring it home, and it's a burnt piece of wood. So we're very attached to whatever we get our hands on. It's mine, it's mine, it's mine, it's mine. So it's quite interesting. That's why you give in charity, and one should have a plan. Usually, so to be very charitable. Of course, the greatest charity is giving people Krishna consciousness. That's the greatest charity. But even in our own lives, be very, very careful not to get too attached to things like that. You get attached. We can be very, very attached, but attached to what is actually going to help us and others become Krishna conscious. We're really attached, and you can get really upset if that gets disturbed. Right? Yes. No, I'm saying it's a fact, isn't it? Just like we don't really care if someone offends us. Go ahead, call me a name. You. Okay. Yeah. But when someone insults a devotee or the Supreme Lord, we get very, very upset, and we come to defense. And in fact, if you don't, that's very serious. One should immediately defend the devotees and the Supreme Lord. Like that. But it's oneself, like that. A story about Prabhupada, I think it was in Canada. In Canada, there was this Indian man coming to the program, and then one evening he just went off on Prabhupada. Bearing a very offensive, loud voice, this, that, and the other thing, and then the devotees probably just took him out. And then in the room later on, they said, Prabhupada, what happened? What was that about? And and Prabhupada didn't say anything. He just took it. And Prabhupada said, I must have offended him in a previous life. Prabhupada just must have offended him in a previous life. So for oneself, but then other times when someone would probably become like fire if someone was offensive to the devotees, his disciples and devotees, let alone the Supreme Lord. Nirvishesha shunyavadi paskatya deshatarane. Prabhupada so powerfully preaching against impersonalism and voidism in the West, Because that's so offensive to Krishna, to say Krishna either never existed or Krishna's blind and lame and dumb. That's what it means. If Krishna's not a person, it means he's blind, he's dumb, he's lame. If I call you lame and dumb, is that nice? No. It's horrible. Because you're not. Even if you are, you don't say that to someone. You don't go to a blind person and say, you're blind. Right? It's an insult. You don't say things like that. So they're calling Krishna, the Mayavadis are saying Krishna's blind, he's dumb, he's deaf, without any feelings. I mean, it's every bad thing you could possibly think about to say to a person or think about him, that's impersonalism. That's impersonalism. Krishna, Prabhupada is very powerfully preaching against these people who are offending Krishna. So, my goodness, I'm just warming up here and it's time to end. So I hope you caught the gist of these verses. And what really pleases Krishna is our devotion. In fact, they asked Srila Prabhupada, what pleases you the most? And what did he say?
If you love Krishna.
Yeah, there it is. That's we'll end with that. Whatever you hear at the end of the class, you remember. What did he say?
If you love Krishna.
Yes, Prabhupada said that pleases me most if you love Krishna. That's what it is, like that. So it's something of the heart. That's the whole point. All these other things aren't of the heart. The charity, the austerity, what's of the heart is what counts. And that's if you love Krishna. If you're developing, and we don't love Krishna, but we're trying to love Krishna. That endeavor is very, very pleasing to Krishna and the Vaishnavas. That we're always just trying to please Krishna. So we can end here. Are there any questions or comments on this? Is there microphones? Are they alive?
No, but they're alive. Hare Krishna. So just to remind.
English editor.
Yeah. Now I've committed an offense, so forgive me.
No, you're correcting me. Teach me how to speak English properly.
Just to comment on that, the last little vignette you mentioned. That was, there's a whole backstory to that. Prabhupada went to Atlanta, and Atlanta was famous. I visited there before they put in the Radha Krishna deity, so it was going to Thai. So Prabhupada went there, and there was packed with all the book distributors. They came from all over, And then Prabhupada, famously, he at one point, I don't know if it was at the same incident, that he started speaking and he couldn't continue. He started crying because he was going to Thai there, and they blessed you all in Boston. But then Narantara Prabhu, our own Narantara, was at that time a full-time book distributor, I think. And he went there, and he's the one who asked that question.
Oh, really? He's
yes,
the one.
Yes, he asked the question, what do you like most? What pleases you the most? And everyone was thinking, if you distribute books. We didn't say that. He said, you love Krishna. Which is, open for all the devotees. It was a wonderful exchange.
So we can end here. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. And everyone remember to go see Mukunda Charanam in the kitchen and offer your respects.